In April 1970, three men embarked on a journey that captured the world's imagination. Apollo 13, destined for the moon, a symbol of American ingenuity, courage, and our relentless push towards the unknown. But what began as a routine mission quickly became a desperate fight for survival, etching a phrase into history that would forever define crisis, resilience, and the power of human spirit. Houston, we have a problem. Before the crisis, before the world knew them for their resilience, these were the three men who carried the hopes of a nation. Commander Jim Lovell, Lunar Module Pilot Fred Hayes, and Command Module Pilot Jack Swigert. These were the men entrusted with continuing humanity's greatest adventure. America had already landed on the moon twice. Apollo 13 was, in many ways, just another step in a triumphant march. The launch itself was flawless, a thunderous roar carrying the hopes of a nation into the heavens. For nearly 2 days, the journey was textbook. They were 200,000 miles from Earth, nearing the moon 250,000 miles from home, with everything going perfectly. Then, 55 hours, 54 minutes, and 53 seconds into the flight, it happened. A sudden jolt, a bang, followed by a frantic call from Jack Swigert to Mission Control. "Okay, Houston, we've had a problem here. We've had a main B bus undervolt." What they didn't know was that an oxygen tank had exploded. The explosion ripped open the side of their service module. Oxygen, power, water, the very lifeblood of their mission was rapidly draining into the vacuum of space. The moon mission was over. In an instant, their goal shifted from exploring the cosmos to a much more fundamental, desperate fight: survival. Back on Earth, the legendary flight director Gene Kranz took charge. His famous words became the mantra for hundreds of engineers: failure is not an option. They had to invent solutions to problems that had never existed, with limited resources and against impossible deadlines. The command module, their primary spacecraft, was crippled. Their only hope was to convert the lunar module, designed for 2 men for 2 days, into a makeshift lifeboat for 3 men for 4 days. This was not in any manual. The immediate crisis was breathable air. The crew had square carbon dioxide canisters. The lunar module only had round holes. A disaster of simple geometry threatened their lives. Back in Houston, a team huddled with only the spare materials the astronauts had: plastic bags, cardboard, and the ever-reliable duct tape. They had to build a life-saving device from garbage. This wasn't about the rocket science they trained for. It was about human resourcefulness. It's a perfect metaphor. When your plan fails, success depends on using the tools you do have. The ground crew talked the astronauts through building a perfect seal 200,000 miles away. They didn't just fix a ship. They proved the power of remote collaboration under the most extreme pressure. The next challenge was energy. To conserve the batteries needed for re-entry, they had to shut down nearly everything: heating, computers, and instruments. The lunar module became an icebox. Temperatures plummeted to near freezing. The crew struggled with exhaustion, dehydration, and a profound bone-deep cold. In that freezing metal can, they had to ration every single drop of water. This wasn't just a physical hardship. It was a profound mental test, a lesson in doing the absolute minimum to survive. The greatest motivation sometimes comes from knowing the consequences of failure. They were the most isolated humans in history, and the only path home was through perfect execution. Navigating a damaged spacecraft required an impossible mid-course correction. They couldn't use their computer systems. They had to use the stars. The crew had to execute a 13-second burn, guided by sight alone. 13 seconds to alter a course by a fraction of a degree. 13 seconds that determined if they would hit Earth or miss it entirely. Before re-entry, they had to shed their lifeboats. First, the Crippled service module, which gave them the first glimpse of the true damage. Seeing the destruction confirmed their fate had been moments away from tragedy. The explosion was far worse than the telemetry had shown. It validated every impossible decision they had made. Next, they released the trusty lunar module, Aquarius, their life raft for 4 days. A solemn farewell to the cold, small ship that had saved their lives. Finally, they powered up the command module, the only section built to survive re-entry. It was a cold, damp 90-hour test of engineering and the human will. Re-entry into Earth's atmosphere meant a communications blackout. This phase usually lasted 3 minutes. For the world, holding its breath, it felt like an eternity. In Houston, clocks ticked past the 3-minute mark, and 4, and 5. The world feared the worst, that the heat shield was cracked or the power was gone. Then, at 6 minutes, the world heard the words, "There they are." The radio signal returned. The capsule was through the fire, and the parachutes had deployed. Apollo 13 hit the Pacific Ocean. Failure was not an option, and the global team had delivered. It was not a triumph of reaching the moon, but a triumph of teamwork. What does this teach us? That the greatest test of character isn't when things go right, but when every single system fails. Resilience is the invention of a new way forward. Every setback in your life is your Apollo 13 moment. Do you panic, or do you grab the duct tape, work with your team, and figure out the impossible solution? Failure is not an option. The Apollo 13 mission didn't make it to the moon, but it gave us one of the most important stories in human history, a story of crisis management, collaboration, and unbreakable spirit. If you feel inspired by the true power of human ingenuity, hit that subscribe button and let us know in the comments, what is your biggest Houston we have a problem moment? We'll see you in the next chapter of Motivation.